Let's bring in senior political analyst Brit Hume. Good evening, Brit. You heard Chad's report there. I think Joe Manchin welcomes this. He comes from a state that he's really not going to have any problem on the progressive side, it doesn't look like.
Well, yeah, I don't know what these Democrats think they're doing when they're attacking him like that. After all, he comes from a state that is one of the reddest in the country. Joe Biden saw Donald Trump get 70%, roughly 70% of the vote in West Virginia, and so Manchin has to think about surviving in a state that's that red. So what he's doing makes all kinds of political sense for him and should make political sense for the Democrats, because if they were to lose that seat, they'd lose their majority. And there's one way they could lose that seat if they keep after him, and that is he could simply switch parties to Republican. That wouldn't get him in any trouble at home, I wouldn't think. And he would then be in the majority, and the Republicans would control the Senate. He would lose nothing, it seems to me, except it would probably get the Democrats off his back.
You know, he writes about the voting bill. They call it the For the People Act, and he says whether it's state laws that seek to needlessly restrict voting or politicians who ignore the need to secure our elections, partisan policymaking won't instill confidence in our democracy. It will destroy it. Going on to say he just doesn't think that this is a necessary thing. Where do you think the public opinion is on something like this bill?
Well, the Democrats have succeeded in one way, Brett, and that is they've gotten everybody to refer to this as a voting rights bill. Who's against voting rights? Well, nobody. The details, however, tell a somewhat different story. Yes, there are things in here that would restrict some of the voting measures that were put in place on an emergency basis during COVID. But overall, this is a pretty reasonable bill, trying to balance access to the ballot with ballot security. That's what it's really all about, and I don't think this is at all an unreasonable bill, and it compares quite favorably to the access to the ballot you find in places like Joe Biden's Delaware. But they've got a good label on it for their purposes, and the media, of course, as usual, most of the media are playing along. Nonetheless, though, I think the politics of this are such that the public would much prefer to see a compromise on this measure, a somewhat less stringent bill, a somewhat less strong medicine. And I think if the Democrats are interested, they could probably get that, and Manchin would get credit for having brokered the deal.
I mean, there's the question about the Constitution. State legislatures are supposed to set up the elections in each one, and this would be a federalized, at least some part of it, effort, and so there's all kinds of legal challenges. But what about some on the left who are going after Manchin now on the issue of race?
Brett, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, that has now become the cudgel, that the left uses to attack people who don't agree with their agenda. They say over and over again it's about race, and they know that one of the great achievements of the civil rights movement, as you've heard me say before, Brett, was the national consensus against racism. It is overwhelming. So if you can stick that label on, that tag of racism on something, it's powerful. But I'm not sure that it's going to work in this case. This bill and the objections to it are not about race, and Joe Manchin's no racist. It's nonsense. And remember this, Brett, Joe Biden didn't really win a landslide or develop any kind of a mandate out of this election. After all, his party lost seats in the House of Representatives. The Senate is split down the middle 50-50. And those are not the circumstances for passage of a very heavyweight, even arguably radical agenda, which is what he's presently trying to do. No wonder this is running into trouble.
All right, Brett, as always, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.